Hi everyone, hope you're okay. Welcome back to my channel. This is TG Tips and I have another maths tutorial today. Today we're going to be going through fractions and improper fractions. Before we go ahead, just a reminder, if you find this helpful, give this video a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, let's go. We'll be going through improper fractions, but before we go ahead, I'll just go through what a fraction is. So a fraction is basically a simpler way to write out divisions or decimals. So for example, if we had 1 over 2, that basically means 1 divided by 2. And as a decimal, we would write that as 0.5, if that even looks like a 0. Okay, so in its simplest terms, that is the best way to define a fraction. It's the top divided by the bottom, or in technical terms, the numerator divided by the denominator. With what we know now, let's do a quick example to illustrate how we would use fractions ourselves. So if we had 0.120 as a fraction, what would this be? We would start off with looking at 0.120. We could say that it's 12 divided by 1, 2. So divided by 2 decimal places, which is 100. So we can say that 0.120 as a fraction would be 12 divided by 100. But the question says in its simplest form, so that basically means we need to simplify the fraction. And by simplify, we mean to divide the top and the bottom by a common factor until we can no longer simplify it. So for example, 12 and 100 can both be divided by 2. So we can say that 12 over 100 is the same as 6 over 50. And what we've done here is just divided the numerator by 2 and divided the denominator by 2. So we've not changed the fraction, we've just simplified it. But again, if we look at this, we can know that we can divide 6 by 2 and we can divide 50 by 2. And by divide, of course, you can divide any number by 2, but we mean to divide without any remainders. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. Now looking at 3 and 25, they don't have any common factors. 3 is a prime number, so we can say that 0.120 as a fraction in the simplest form would be 3 over 25, because we can no longer simplify that fraction. A simpler way to do it, if you were able to recognize that 4 goes into both 12 and 100, then you could have divided the numerator by 4 and the denominator by 4 straight away. So we would have done 12 divided by 4, which is 3, and 100 divided by 4, which is 25, and that would have just saved you that extra step. But I would always say, when in doubt, just go step by step and you can't go wrong. Moving on, we'll move on to top-heavy fractions, which are improper fractions, which is what today's lesson is about. We'll start by an example. So a top-heavy fraction is a fraction where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. And we just have this bubble here explaining that. Here's an example. It says, write 17 divided by 3 as an improper fraction, then a mixed number fraction. So an improper fraction, as we said, is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. That's really easy because, as we said before, a fraction is just a division. So the question's asking us to do 17 divided by 3. So we're just going to put 17 on the top and our fraction line, and that's divided by 3. So that would be our improper fraction, or our top-heavy fraction. But a mixed number is basically asking us to write it in the form of a whole number and a fraction as a remainder. To do this, we would do 17 divided by 3, and we would count how many times 3 can go into 17 as a whole number. So 17 divided by 3, the most we could do is 15. 3 into 17 5 times, but then we would have 2 left over. So we would do the remainder as a fraction out of 3. So that would be 5 and 2/3. So if I work backwards from here, you can understand what I've done. I've done how many times 3 goes into 17. It's 5. with 2 as a remainder. Let's move on to another example, just to make it make a bit more sense. Our practice question says 6 friends share £57 equally. How much do they get each? You can pause the video, have a go by yourself, and then carry on and check your answers afterwards. I'm just going to go through the answers now. If you're a bit stuck, don't worry. So we're doing 57 shared between 6 friends. The trick with worded questions is just to pick out the maths and to work out what they want us to do. We don't actually care about the words. We're doing 57 divided by 6. So as a fraction, that would be 57 on top, and we're dividing that by 6. To find out how much they would get each, we would basically do it as a mixed number fraction. But as we did before, we will count how many times 6 goes into 57, and then how many parts of 6 would be left after that. 57 divided by 6, we can get that in 9 times. 9 times 6 is 54. So that means we have 3/6 left. So we have 3 parts of 6 left. If we're writing this in its simplest form, we would do 9, and 3 and 6 are both divisible by 3, so we can write that as 1/2. So that would be 9.5. That means that each friend would get £9.5. But obviously we need to write that as proper money. So that would be £9, and half of a full pound is 50p, so it's £9.50. By getting the mixed number fraction, we're able to know what the remainder is. So our answer would be each friend gets £9.50 each. If you do have a worded question, it's always best to just write a quick sentence just to highlight your answer, just to make sure the examiner knows you know what the correct answer is. Hopefully we all got that right. We have another practice question. It says write 0.72 as a fraction in its simplest form. So again, you can pause the video, have a go by yourself, and then I'll go through the answer. 0.72 is a number divided by another number. We would look at the whole number that we have within this decimal. So the whole number that we have is 72. And now we're working out what 72 has been divided by in order to get 0.72. So we've basically divided it by, moved it to the right by 2 decimal places, meaning we've divided it by 100. So it would be 72 divided by 100. But again, it says in its simplest form. So we are working to reduce this fraction to a point where we're not able to divide the top and the bottom by the same number. The easiest thing to do, I always just start by dividing by 2. So if I divide the top by 2, it's 36, and divide the bottom by 2, it's 50. Again, they're both divisible by 2, so I can do the top divided by 2, which is 18, and the bottom, which is 25. They have no more common factors, so we would say that 0.72 as a fraction in its simplest form would be 18/25. And that's it. And that's everything that we're going to do today. So that was a really good introduction, and I think it's a really good point to stop. We'll just summarise everything that we've been through. Fractions are just divisions. That's one key thing to remember. So if you ever see a fraction, just remember you're doing the top divided by the bottom. Don't overcomplicate it in your mind. It's just, it is what it is. The second thing to remember is that simplifying means you do the same to the top and the bottom. So by simplifying, we're not changing the fraction, we're just writing it in its simplest form. So we have to do the same thing that we do to the top to the bottom. And the third thing to remember is just to work backwards to check your answers. So particularly when we're writing decimals as fractions, it's really easy just to use your answer, either put it in a calculator and see if you get the same decimal, or let's say for example when we had 0.72 and we wrote it as a fraction, we did 72/100. It's really easy to work backwards and just to make sure it's right. So if we did 72 divided by 100, we're just checking that we do in fact get 0.72, and in this case we do. And just one more thing that I feel like I forgot to add to the summary is just if you have worded questions, make sure that you write a worded answer to summarise your findings, just so the examiner knows that you know you've found the right answer. Okay, and that's everything, guys. I don't have any resources for this topic yet. I'd say get some extra practice. I'll add some links in the description box of some helpful websites as usual. And if you do need anything, my email address is in the description as well. I've also got a Facebook page actually, which I'm going to link down below, so you can always post some questions if you do have any. Subscribe to my channel for more content, and leave a comment with any questions or any requests for any topics. That's everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!